Hi everyone, Bren here. Welcome back to this week's garden update. Now, before we get into taking a look around the garden, I have some very exciting news to share with you, which I did post on the shorts section here on YouTube, but just in case you missed that, I'm so happy to let you know that I have started a small business called Bren's Blooms, where I will be growing cut flowers here in my garden, arranging them into little bouquets and selling them at my local garden centre called Tarmore Garden Centre in Bargo. Every Friday I'll be dropping off some fresh bunches of flowers, and this morning was the very first time I did that, and what you see here is what I delivered. I was really happy with how they turned out. Nice colourful spring garden bouquets. I've been planning this new business for a number of months, but I made a decision not to mention it until I actually got it up and running, because I guess I was a bit nervous. I've never done anything like this before, and I wanted to make sure that I got it right before I said it to anyone pretty much. I did want to say that although I've started this small business, there will still be these weekly Friday videos where I'm showing you around my cottage garden. We're taking a look at the food I'm growing, might do a garden harvest, cook a meal, look at the chickens, check out, what pollinators and other insects and bugs around the garden, dealing with garden pests, all the normal stuff that comes with gardening. So that's not going to change, but I may add in a few extra things about cut flowers, how things are going, sharing any tips and tricks I learn along the way when it comes to having a small business selling these flowers that I grow here in my garden. Okay, that's enough chatting. Let's get into this update. It's like I'm growing a mint forest over here by the raised beds. It has come back in full force. This particular one is chocolate mint, which wasn't the dominant variety a couple of years back, but now it seems to have taken over. I just harvested a bunch of it for drying. It doesn't even look like I made much of a dent. It's easy enough to dry. I grabbed a big handful of it, wrapped the bottom up with some twine, and I'll hang this up in our sunroom. This method is called air drying, and here where I've placed it in this part of the sunroom, it doesn't actually receive direct sunlight, which is ideal, and it will take approximately a week for these leaves to go nice and crispy, at which time I will remove them all and place them into a jar. I could also use my dehydrator to dry out that mint, but I'm not going to go to that effort. Hanging them up, the air drying method works perfectly fine. I've got a lettuce growing tip to share with you over here. I don't think I've mentioned it before on my YouTube channel. Some of you may not be aware that currently here in Australia there is just some awful heavy rain creating floods throughout the country, mostly in Victoria at the moment, and it is affecting areas of farmland which produce food for a lot of people here in Australia. Some fruit and veg crops have been destroyed, and experts are saying over here that the price of them at the supermarket is going to increase quite a lot. And we actually saw this happen at the beginning of the year when it came to lettuce. Lettuce at the supermarket was absolutely ridiculous in price. Like, I'm talking $12, $13 at its peak for sale, like for one head. But you know what, fortunately we are in spring, and this is the ideal time here in New South Wales to grow lettuce from seed. Whether you have a large garden or a balcony that you can grow lettuce in a pot, here is a video to show how to grow lettuce fast. This is how you can grow lettuce fast. One lettuce plant can take up to 10 weeks to reach maturity. But if you sow multiple seeds closer together, you'll end up being able to harvest many lettuce leaves from a lot of smaller plants in half the time. I hope someone found that little video useful, and Another thing to mention is that if you want your pot of lettuce to last longer, rather than pulling an entire plant out as needed, use the cut and come again method, where you just harvest a few leaves from around the outside of the plants. By doing this, it will encourage more growth from the center of the lettuce plant, giving you a longer crop from this one pot. I'm finding it very hard to keep up with the weeding in this garden. Whoops, sorry, I nearly fell over a tray. It is out of control already. We're only in mid-spring, and here is one example of how I've just kind of lost it a bit in some areas. I've got some beautiful hippeastrums growing in this bed. Gorgeous, multiple flowers on one stem. They're only just starting to bloom. There's lots of plants under here, but unfortunately it's been swamped out by this weed, which is taking over the place. And I wish I could say that this is only one area of the garden that I need to manage, but it's not. There's lots of areas that are out of control. I just picked a couple of stems of these to enjoy inside because you can hardly see them where they're growing at the moment. You know, I was thinking, how cool would it be if I had a few more buds of these gorgeous massive flowers to sell next week. The wind has just picked up. I think there is another storm on the way. I'm getting a bit distracted by the storm. The wind is picking up. I might try and see if I can get the girls to go into their coop so they're nice and safe. I haven't actually checked the weather forecast, but we could be in for a big downpour. Look what the two of them did during the week. It's my own fault for not, putting sticks in there to protect them, but this is where, autumn, or snowflake, no, you've done enough damage. This is where I have the Sweet Williams. They dug a few of them up, but I have something very exciting to show you over here. Do you remember the new variety of calendula I was trying out? This is called Ivory Princess. Well, it's flowering. Isn't that gorgeous? I love the creamy yellow colour, and interestingly the centre of this one is yellow, but then if you come over here, this particular one has a kind of dark red centre on it. This week, a lot of the buds on the baby's breath have begun to open. Lots of stems on the apricot status and a bit of colour appearing. It has been a while since I've given you an update on the dahlias. Most of the tubers that I started off in these pots have sprouted. I'm sure the few that haven't will make an appearance very soon. I know there's a few of you watching who I said I would give some tubers to. I'm very sorry that I haven't been organised enough to post them off to you yet. This is only a little amount, but I do have more to dig up, so hopefully I'll be able to do that in a week or two. Over here underneath the mulberry tree, I have 3 huge clumps of dahlias that I still haven't dug up yet. They're in there somewhere amongst the salvias and tansy. I've read from many credible sources that it's a good idea to dig up your clumps of tubers every few years. The reason being that if you don't dig them up, what happens is there are just too many tubers tightly packed together, which can affect the amount of blooms they produce as well as the size of the bloom. So usually what happens is you'll notice that the bloom size will decrease and you'll get a lot less flowers. That is why I have dug up some of my larger dahlia clumps this year. I have been digging up and dividing tubers from this section, and this year, because of all the expected rainfall, what I'm doing with my dahlias, this actually was a clump I divided and replanted, but look how much it's grown. I have elevated the soil just to ensure that I get really good drainage, because if you don't have good drainage, the tubers will rot and your plants will die. Here comes trouble. It's nice to see the 2 girls having a wander around the garden because I know the next few days, or could even be a week, I haven't really checked the forecast, there's going to be a lot of rain. And usually when we have days like that, they don't like hanging out here very much. They usually make their way to our back porch and stay there. Well, we have come to the end of this week's video. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead and happy gardening.